This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV. We're here today with Marcus Scherer of Shell to discuss decarbonization in the maritime industry and its ramifications for Shell. But to start us off here, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the decarbonization push in maritime and what it means for maritime in general, but also specifically for Shell.
Thanks, Greg. Well, decarbonization means a lot of things, and it's a very strategic part where you start at the very top, where you think about, okay, what does decarbonization mean for shipping? What are the challenges? What are the problems to solve? And what are the future possibilities we have? Be it technical, be it behavioral, or be it what fuel type to take. So there's a lot of big strategic decisions that need to be taken in the shipping industry right now. And we are very happy that we have set up a whole group within Shell called Shell Marine, who is tackling exactly that challenge. And then from that, we work our way down and we work our way from the customer back up to really understand what is on their mind. Are they on that strategic part? Do they need help on managing the strategic element? Or are they just about managing the fleet they have at hand? The two extremes right now. Because if you work our way through the strategy, we realize, okay, this is new builds and this is the future. But we have roughly 90,000 ships on sea of all kinds who need to be managed, and CO2 emissions need to be managed in a way or another. So we work our way from the strategic part down to the crew, down to the engine, down to what does it mean if you make a decision, to the crew, to the engine, to your feed rate, what happens in the engine. And between that micro level and the whole macro level, Shell Marine is covering all the layers and is very happy to have conversations with their customers, depending their needs, depending where they are, and depending on where they are on the journey and how we can help them to push the journey.
I know it's a tough ask, but how many companies truly are looking to that future 20, 30 years down the road?
I think the question, the answer, as so often in shipping, is it depends. And it really depends on where the customer is. And we have really incredibly strategic, good conversations about the future with companies where you even wouldn't expect it. And then sometimes you talk to other companies where you would think they should be a bit more progressed, and you realize they are really in the mode of we are buying second-hand tonnage, and we just try to cut the future into 4-year, 5-year sequences and see how we manage along those lines. We have customers who really ask about what is the future fuel, how does the fuel mosaic look like, how can Shell help us, how can Shell help us on the journey, how does the world look like in 10, 15 years? And we have customers who ask us, look, what can I do with the ships at hand? What type of ship should I buy? How can we cope with CII regulations next year? And how can you help me make my engine more efficient? And what happens to my engine if I put biofuels, which is the short term? So once an owner told me the dog never jumps higher than the stick, which is probably the owner who looks into the next 3 to 4 years and see how we can cope in a very sequenced way with upcoming legislations. And we really have the big thinking owners who look into the future and try to find the solution and try to position them ahead of the game. And if I would say, is it linked to the size of a customer? I wouldn't say so. It's much more linked into how is the customer ready to embrace the future and position himself. Very much true for digitalization as well. I mean, we have customers who proudly tell us they are doing their own maintenance on an Excel spreadsheet. And we have customers who really are embracing the digital world in what is the data we have, what is the data you have, how can we use your tools and combine it and help my crew to make the right decisions.
But at the same point, when you talk about traditional marine fuels and lubricants, digitalization necessarily wouldn't be the first thing that would come to mind historically. What digital tools do you offer to the ship owners that help them manage their engines and their fleets better?
We basically have, from a technical side, we have 2 digital tools, which is, the one is Loop Analyst, and Loop Analyst in the mind of a lot of people is an oil sample and I get a report. This would be like if you take your blood, you send it to the lab and you get a report, and based on that report, you think about your therapy. That's what, unfortunately, we see sometimes happening in the market. For us, Loop Analyst starts with the report, and then we compare the data against 800 profiles aligned with OEM recommendations and service letters, and we really make sure that what we learn from the report, similar to what your doctor is doing, reading the data, connecting it to additional data, and then come up with the right therapy if needed, or give a green hug if you think all good. But we are not just taking a lab report, we really augment it by digital solutions and artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. That's in terms of how we treat labs and RLA samples. Then, especially for the two-stroke part, which is the most important part if it comes to engine, we have Loop Monitor, where we combine a number of things. The one is the data from the samples. The other one is data collected on board and pictures taken on board, because we found out that deposits cannot be seen in the lubricants. You can roughly predict 60% of your failures in engines just by looking into the lubricants properly. There is 40% where you need to have a visual inspection because you don't see the buildup of deposits in samples. There we have Loop Monitor, where we augment the data from the ship, the samples we get, and the pictures. We combine them in one place and we give clear advice. The second part is we found out that lubricants doesn't help if it's not on the ship and in the engine. So we need to help our customers to make sure they can predict their demand. And in an increasingly complex world where supply chains, we feel this personally at home. Supply chains are not what they have been before. I waited 3 months for a spare part for my car because I had a small accident. I had 3 months no car, and I never had that before, and it's a German car. I never had that before in my life, and they tell me it's reality. So this is the supply chain issues we have to deal with.
Like, can you discuss some specific case studies?
I can give you one example where we found out with IMO 2020 that deposit is becoming a problem. Not a secret, with IMO 2020 we had a small animal called COVID coming on this planet as well. So we realized the need and the problem of making more visual inspections on ships and sending superintendents and sending technical people on ships. That's exactly what was not possible during that time. And we said, okay, how can we help customers? So we thought about, okay, we have the knowledge, we know what it takes to make such an inspection. And we have the guys working with the engine manufacturers to visit and inspect ships. So we know how to do it. And on ships we realized they sometimes even don't know how to do it. If they do it, they don't store it properly, or they don't measure the right things in the right way. Within 6 months from the idea to launch, we developed an additional part of our Shell Monitor service, which is making visual inspections. So it's a guidance, and it's guiding a crew member through his scavenge port inspections, as if a Shell expert would stand next to him and tell him, make a picture of this with a sample, make a picture of that, measure this, enter it here, and create a report which can be used by OEMs, by us, by the technical people. And after 6 months, we delivered that solution to our customers and bridged the whole challenge of not being able to make visual inspections in a time where you desperately need it.
As you look ahead to future fuels, ammonia, hydrogen, biofuels, everything that's being discussed now, can you give a general overview of how you're investing today to ensure that smooth future?
What we do today is we have our Loop Monitor, Shell Loop Monitor system, where I think we can safely say it's one of the best in the markets. We have OEMs reaching out to us who want to collaborate and understand how that system works. And the trick is, and I can only advise every ship owner on this planet, start monitoring your engine. If you use Shell Loop Monitor, you made an extremely wise decision. But if you take any other loop monitoring system in your engine, cylinder condition monitoring system in your engine, it's a good decision as well. Because you need to get the trend lines right. First, you need to understand your engine. If it's an existing engine, you need to get the trend lines right, and you know how your engine behaves with the fuel you know. If you then start to add biofuels, to give an example, you might see a change or not, but at least you know how good look like. If you start measuring, if you're already in a bumpy stage, it's too late. You don't have the baseline. Same to future fuels. I mean, we believe with methanol we are okay, but there are no long-term tests. Even with biofuels, we believe it will work. But there's a reason why you need to test a lubricant 4,000 hours on a running ship in same condition, because it's on the long term you see deposits. Deposits are not coming overnight, and challenges usually don't come overnight in shipping. If you look into new fuels like ammonia and going ahead, hydrogen and hydrogen-based fuels, I think we all don't know how the future look like, and we all don't know how the mosaic will turn out. But all these fuels first of all, you need to have an engine. This engine needs to be tested. Then you need to be tested with a number of lubricants, and then in the long term we understand what happens in the engine. This can only be done by proper monitoring, by get your data right. And this is where we work on with OEMs, with customers, with additional companies to really get as much data as possible. But data itself, it's just data. And then take the data, augment it, apply our artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, our technical expertise, our profiles. A profile is like a filter. It checks does it go through or no? Is it aligned with OEM requirements, yes or no? And once we've applied all this, we still have one technical guy looking at it, and then we say, okay, I think we understand what's going on in that engine or not. And if you don't understand it, we fly there and learn. And if you know, we go to the customer and tell him, you better watch out.